News at 11. Zion Williamson, not dead. This is good news because, look, there's a lot of hysteria going on this morning. I opened up Twitter, and the #1 trending search for me, and these are always qualified, right, because I look at a lot of NBA, was Greg Oden. Come on, people.
Hell ain't right,
Come on. Zion is only expected to miss weeks with an unspecified injury to his right knee. Woj reporting it is not a severe injury. But that's being said, since we know it's not in the Greg Oden category, and thank you, Alvin Gentry, it's not in the he's dying category. Still, Paul, how much of it is just a bummer for NBA fans? I mean, Zion was supposed to open the league.
Yes.
Opening night game was him and the Pelicans versus the Toronto Raptors getting their rings. Is it a bummer for fans that he won't be involved in the first few weeks of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the anticipation of this guy coming out of college, I mean, the excitement that he showed us in the preseason, I couldn't wait to see this guy, and I pegged the Pelicans to be one of the most, if not the most exciting team in the league this year because of Zion.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, this year has so many things to be excited about. Okay, so we got one less thing to be excited about. Everybody get a grip, like Alvin said. Come on.
Well, are you confident? How are you confident about how this is going to lay out the rest of the season? Because obviously we're not doctors, right? We could always say that, and we don't even know what the specific injury is. He had the issue at Duke when he blew out his shoe, right? Twisted his knee during summer league. It was something knee related that ended up he only played 9 minutes, but a lot of people don't play in summer league, right?
Yeah.
This is a knee issue. You love the Pelicans no matter how much he plays this season, right?
Yeah, I do, but at the same time, my thing was it's a young team, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is for young teams to make the playoffs in their first kind of year together is kind of a stretch to begin with, healthy or not. And so, you know, obviously this takes a little steam out of their engine, but the other thing you got to remember is in the Western Conference, there's no we'll make it up later. And I think especially if you look at the first month or so of their season, they play a lot of tough teams. Their schedule is not easy at all. So I wasn't all the way confident they'd be a playoff team to begin with. This probably takes a little bit of that confidence away.
And Paul, you've seen this with players before, right? We're not talking about the major crazy knee injuries, just little nagging ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's, you know, when this happens this early in a career, it tends to like stay with you throughout your career. So hopefully it doesn't turn it, because usually I've seen guys that had nagging knee injuries turn into MCL surgery or even a bad ACL tear. So I hope it doesn't lead to that and they can just jump on it right away. But it's a concern being that he's so young, having these problems this early.
Which is sort of, I would think, why the Pelicans are trying to manage this the way they are, right? First sign of anything, sit him down for a couple.
And they got one of the best training staffs. You got Aaron Nelson, Tom Mason, all those guys over there. They're great at being proactive on these things. Because remember, it's not like he crumpled to the floor in pain. Yeah. We didn't even know when the injury happened. Alvin didn't even sound totally sure. We think it happened in the Spurs game. So they're being conservative here, and they know what they're doing.
But the one thing I will say is that, you know, knee injuries, you know, he's carrying so much weight. He's so athletic. I think he's going to have to lose a little bit more weight. That's one thing that happened to me. I had a bone bruise in my knee my 9th year, and I decided to trim down, lose about 10 more pounds, just to take that extra pressure off my knees, and it really helped.
It made a big difference.
Definitely.
Because he's lost weight since summer league, right? I mean,
yes,
he definitely
At
had that little, like, post-college, like, little whatever. But then, you know, I felt that coming into camp or being in camp that he looked like he was in basketball shape. But you'd like to see him even be a little trimmer.
He jumps so high. It's a lot of pounding on those knees.
Coach K probably thinks, see, he should play preseason, guys. He's got too many things he's got going on. No preseason for him.
I'm just going to go back to Alvin Gentry's headline. He's not dying. So let's just go from there. Yay! Coming up, we're going to discuss Luka Doncic and his chances of snatching one of the 12 highly coveted Western Conference All-Star spots. Remember, if you're putting him in, you have to take someone else out. So scribble your list down, and we will talk about that a little later in the show. First, though, so for the last 18 years, NBA.com has conducted a preseason survey of the league's general managers, allowing them to anonymously vote on big things like who they project to be the next MVP or which team they think will win the finals, to smaller things like which off-season player acquisition was the most underrated, or which GM is most likely to start an international incident.
No.
No. Joke about that yet?
Too soon.
No? Okay. Anyway, a lot of the survey results are exactly what you would expect. Giannis got the MVP nod and is also the player that most execs would like to build a franchise around. The Clippers were picked as the most likely to hold Larry O'Brien, just like they've been in almost every other preseason preview. But some of the results were a little weird. I mean, last year, the same group of GMs selected Brad Stevens as the best coach in the league. Not for that 1 year, just as the best coach in the league overall. That is what they said. Then this year, he did not receive a single vote. Not one. The GMs picked Greg Popovich, followed by Eric Spoelstra, Mike Budenholzer, and Steve Kerr. Now, I am not saying at all that Brad Stevens should be named the best coach overall, period. I'm just saying that if that many front office executives had that much confidence 12 months ago that Stevens was a prodigy, it's not a great look that they're all so easily shaken by one bad season. It's supposed to be the brain trust of the NBA. Wow. The survey also asked the GMs which team was the most fun to watch. The most votes went to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Now, so far, NBA fans don't seem to agree. Denver doesn't draw the league's best television ratings, but hey, maybe that's going to change this year. When it came to the most athletic player in the NBA, Zion Williamson got 41% of the vote, handily beating Giannis, who got 28%. Now, hard to say if that will change with any injury issues Zion has. We'll see. Now, LeBron James was named as having the best basketball IQ and being the league's best passer. Okay. Steven Adams was named as the toughest guy in the NBA, which, I mean, the man grew up as the youngest of 18 brothers and sisters. You'd be pretty tough, too. De'Aaron Fox was named the NBA's fastest player with the ball. Damian Lillard got the most votes for best leader, beating out Steph and LeBron. Now, there's a lot more results and a lot more categories. Honestly, by the time you get through sifting through the whole thing, you feel like you've leafed through the pages of your high school yearbook where your friends were naming everything from most likely to succeed to best smile.
I won both of those.
And in the end, that's probably how we should look at all of this. A fun, interesting read into the minds of the men who shape the NBA's decision-making, but not as any kind of ironclad pronouncement of talent. After all, apparently you can be a genius one year and persona non grata the next, which actually, come to think of it, is a lot like high school. Yeah. I mean, what stuck out to you most from the GM survey?
Well, first and foremost, there was one of these surveys that happened early in the summer, and I remember it was like best acquisition or worst loss of a player and all these things. And in every one of them, there was always someone who was voting for Thomas Satoransky. And I just kept thinking, like, who is this guy who is infatuated with Thomas Satoransky? So then the official NBA.com one comes out, and sure enough, this dude is still here. Like, hey, biggest pickup. Like, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, all the movement we had this summer, there's one dude saying, no, Satoransky. That's the one right there. So I thought that was pretty funny. I was amused. I want to know who this guy is.
Can't we draw the dots on who that is, though?
You want to know, say his name, huh?
I want to know who's this. Why is he so in love with this dude?
Paul, what did you think of all of that? Especially the change. I mean, again, apparently last year, Brad Stevens is the greatest coach of all time, and this year, no one's there for him. Yeah. Very sad. It's very Johnny come lately.
As the players you have, obviously, but you know, it's surprising that Damian Lillard is getting props as the best leader because, in my eyes, he's been underrated over the last 5 years. And it's good to see that GMs really recognize this about him, especially with guys like LeBron, Chris Paul out there still, like you said, Steph Curry. So I'm happy that he's getting recognized as a leader out here.
Chris Paul and Rajon Rondo were up in the top 4 for the players that GMs thought would be most likely to become head coaches down the road.
Man, can you imagine playing for
I'm trying to imagine either one of those things. I mean, they're both, because to your point, they're both two of the smartest players that we have.
I do believe Rondo will be a head coach.
Do you think that he will be a head coach?
He drew up plays for us in the huddle at times. He would grab the clipboard from Doc like, I got something.
Coach Chris Paul, though, man.
I love it.
He's going to make Popovich look warm and fuzzy.
To your
rival coaches, Rondo and Chris Paul, huh?
Right. I mean, no spinning, Mel, is what I would say. I would say, Paul, to your point, that Doc Rivers said that he never thought about coaching until he played for Pat Riley. And Pat was just, they didn't even play for him that long, but he was just like, you're going to be a coach. Doc, I know, has said the same thing to Rondo. So the chain continues. We'll see. Let's talk about the Clippers winning the title, according to 46% of the NBA GMs. Do you consider them the best team in the NBA right now, Paul?
I do not consider them the best team right now. I think right now the Milwaukee Bucks are the best team. If you look last year, they had the best record. They had one of the top defenses, one of the top offenses. And we all know they have the best player, I believe, in the NBA. So I think they're going to get out a little bit faster than all these teams that's coming together, putting teams together like the Clippers and the Lakers, obviously the Houston Rockets. So I believe they're the best team right now.
Yeah, I think when you say best team right now, we got to factor in all the things that are going on. For the Clippers, for instance, Paul George isn't playing, so we can't say they're the best team right now. For me, it's the Denver Nuggets. I think when you talk about a team that has the least kind of turnover, the real big addition for them is Michael Porter Jr. being this going to be his rookie year. But other than that, they're bringing back the same guys who have been together for 3-4 years under the same coaching staff. They were top 10 in both offense and defense last year, and they got a bona fide MVP candidate in Nikola Jokic. They've got a, kind of like what Paul said about Milwaukee, they got an advantage on the rest of the league where guys are trying to get to know each other or get to know new schemes and stuff. These guys know what they're doing, so they get to go out there and benefit off that continuity.
Do you think they're going to be able to hold up the defensive wall that they put up last year? Because remember, that was a big turnaround from the previous year, right?
Yeah, and that was one of the things I asked Coach Michael Malone. I said, look, you guys, usually when a team gets better defensively after being bad, it's either changing personnel, you add Kevin Garnett, for instance, or changing staff. We got rid of the head coach, or we added someone like Jeff Bzdelik, a great defensive mind. They did neither. So what was it? And he said, we basically had a kumbaya moment where everybody, players, coaches said, what we're doing is not good enough. So I think they're bought in. They know what it takes to be good or good to great in this league. And the next step is now championship, and you don't let off if that's what you go
The other
with.
thing interesting about the Nuggets in this GM survey was the GMs were asked to rate every position, right? And best center was pretty overwhelmingly Jokic over Embiid. Now,
Really?
all NBA last year, Jokic did get that first team spot next to Embiid, but it was pretty close. In this survey, it was not close. Would you rank them that way?
I think it's a lot closer than what people think. I mean, yes, Joker, he put up some crazy stats, and even in the first round, he was dominant.
Yep.
He was dominant, but you can't take anything away from Embiid. He's dominant on both ends.
There
of the
you
court.
go.
And that's where I think it's you can't separate them that far because they need an Embiid on defense for Denver, the guy who can clog up the lane, block shots. So it's a lot closer, and I'm not so sure Joker is better than Embiid.
Yeah, as a voter last year, for me, it came down to games played because Embiid lost a lot of time. But, he's taken what happened to him last year, lost weight, and improved his conditioning. I expect him to show exactly what Paul said. I'm better than that other guy.
I mean, look, if you are making, I'm not talking about these two guys specifically because, as you point out, there are all kinds of factors last year. In general, if you have two players that are even-ish offensively, and even if one's a little bit better, but the other one's a really strong defensive player of the year
Way
candidate.
better, yeah.
I don't know. It's like when people say he's a two-way player. I'm like, aren't we all supposed to be two-way players? Isn't that the idea? Coming up, Giannis said after last night's preseason win over the Timberwolves that it's scary how good the Bucks can be this season. So he agrees with Paul Pierce. How terrified should the rest of the league be? We'll discuss that. First, though, it's time for our distant replay. It's this date, 2010, featuring LeBron James.
I was hoping the back-to-back Vince Carter.